What's up, guys? Local Bulls fan, back again.
Man, what a
Trying to
drag.
ramp up these videos, make them more frequent. Summertime, you already know. Got more free time on my hands. Right now, I'm playing, Resident Evil 4 a little bit too. Just simple life update. And today I'm gonna talk about like two things. What Scottie Pippen said on Stacey King's podcast, and to lead off into with Scottie, just talk about the history of two-way wings and 3-and-D players. Those archetypes, how they've been in Chicago for a while. We sort of have a lineage with that, and how overall that impacts the NBA as how it can influence just the Bulls in general. How it influences models, game, like what is the 3-and-D? There's a lot of these terms being thrown out there, but no one ever really like specifies. No one looks into it has layers into it, because 3-and-D, two-way, different things of that nature. I'll get on to it later, but right now we're gonna go talk about what Scottie Pippen said. So that bullshit ass page of diehard Chicago Bulls fans like clipped one thing Scottie said instead of the entire interview, just trying to like lead with this like propaganda. Just Scottie was, all over the place in the interview, I would say. There's definitely bitterness there, but he wasn't like blatantly just being a complete jerk about MJ and Phil. And don't get me wrong, there's points in the interview where I'm like, yeah, this guy is still holding on to this, but at the same time, it's definitely not like as wild as that clip made it seem to be. Like, he wasn't just going off the entire like interview and a rant. I don't know if you guys ever seen like Birdman when he went on the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club, man, he just came in, yelled, put some respect on his name, then left. That wasn't what Scottie did. He answered Stacey's questions carefully, talked in depth, not only about, himself, but the team as a whole. It was very interesting, just learning more. And, something I liked more, just because I didn't grow up with MJ. I wasn't even alive when all that happened. Fun fact, I'm just 23 years old. So, like, I wasn't a being to really take in those 6 championships. So, a lot of it, like, I do definitely. I went back, obviously. I've watched full games of MJ and Scottie. Me and my brother have sat all summer in the living room just watching these full on, not just highlights, games, watching them back to back, not getting sick of it at all. It was insane. But all that said, I do have appreciation, but I definitely don't have it as a lot of the old heads do, or like older, Bulls fans, content creators, things like that. But something that stuck out to me more than just like all that, bad blood or drama, whatever, is them talking about the triangle offense. That was pretty interesting, saying that it could be ran today. And it kind of just made me think, Scottie, you're over here still holding, like, you come in, you bring up MJ, you bring up Phil. They don't really ask too much about, like, them. You don't have to keep living in this shadow that's in your head. If you really think the triangle offense could be ran today, how you and Stacey were talking about, you could easily go and try to implement that within a team, trying to, get an assistant job, things of that, like, sort. It ain't, like, when I think of MJ today, I think of being a dog shit owner. When I think of Phil, I think of what he did with the Lakers. Like, they have, some type of life after the dynasty. It may not be perfect because, Phil was even worse on the Knicks. Like, oh god, that was just funny as hell to watch, and screw him for, probably stealing away Carmelo Anthony when he could have been a Bull. But that's a story for another day. Congratulations on retiring. But all to say is, like, I understand him being bitter. When you're over here getting underpaid, I'm just putting myself in his position. You're underpaid. That's weird. You're underpaid. You're doing a lot of work, the most work, and you're not even getting like the same amount of credit. At least that, like the recognition. I could see just a lifetime of bitterness, but I don't think you have to live in that. But Like Scottie was just he was ahead of his time too with a lot of he led the Bulls in every statistical category, and I think the only person to do I think there's a long gap between when players did that to him. If I'm not there's only a few players that did that. I don't have the numbers on me or the stats, but I remember when Giannis was doing that for the Bucks, there was definitely just a limited amount of players that have done it for their respective teams. So that's insane. Overall, I just feel like he, besides, a lot of the personal stuff he goes through with his wife, his son passing, may he rest in peace, things like that. It's tough. He's a human being at the end of the day, too. And it's not even about that, but stuff pertaining towards Phil and Michael, he doesn't really. I hope he finds help. He doesn't need to live in that. He could have leave his own mark on the basketball world after that. It doesn't need to be solely the dynasty. I remember he was talking about other ventures he was getting to, how he didn't really enjoy too much of not on court, like just stuff within an organization, having one of those jobs. He didn't specify too much what he did, so I'm not trying to be like Sammy, throw out propaganda. But he was just, I'm like, I know those aren't really the places you get the most recognition from, but he still could. It seems like he could contribute something to the game, but who knows? Which leads me to, him as a player. He was definitely a two-way, averaging 3 steals a game is insane. And I just think about the lineage the Chicago Bulls have with 3-and-D players. Where, two ways. Yeah, Michael, definitely a two-way. Scottie. Then you got the Luol Deng, Jimmy Butler. And then I look at today, Patrick Williams, and what it means for the Bulls. I see him, his ceiling as a solid 3-and-D Luol Deng type. But I feel like there's levels to being the overall complete perfect wing, the ideal one that Portland wants to trade for, but it's not as flexible or easy as it seems. But anyway, so I think the base level is just a typical 3-and-D wing, someone sits higher, shoots from 33-35% from the three, and could overall guard one of the better players on the court, really put in those numbers, hold down that wing position. But then you get the two ways of the world, where it's more of the Luol Deng and Jimmy Butler while he was here. The two way, I think for a two way, you don't necessarily need the three as much because you'll be elite on both ends, just scoring in general. For two ways, you don't really. You aren't the most you aren't a sniper, but you aren't horrible at the three ball either. But you could really guard the other team's best player and lock them up while going to get a bucket. But then there's the elite wings where it's MJ and Scottie, where you're doing both. You can do all around in the world. And I feel those players are so valuable in today's NBA. They go very much, they aren't really categorized. How I said, no one really has an ideal, when they say, oh yeah, 3-and-D player, I don't think of OG, I don't think of popular names. I don't think of any of the sexiest NBA, pause. That, of the bigger names, the on-brand names of the players. I think of Batum, Grant Williams, even Dylan Brooks, even though he can't really do either, but he's still when he actually focused on basketball, he was alright. I'll give him that. He was alright, but there aren't really the polishing names, but then the two ways more of that's where I say the OG, Jaylen Browns, things of that, and then the elite would be Kawhi and PG. What does this have to do with the Bulls? I want Patrick Williams to really get a shot. I think he could be more of like I said, that Luol Deng ceiling, where you're not necessarily a 3-and-D, the Nick Batum, PJ Tucker, Grant Williams, but you definitely are in that like OG level, and I feel like he could be there. His jumper's great. He has the great physicality to guard the other team's best player, and I just want him to get the opportunity. We have that history of that within the Bulls organization. I feel like he should really be allowed to flourish with that. Jimmy was definitely a two-way here. He was able to get some buckets. He was able to freaking go and guard the other team's best player. He was great. He wasn't elite. He definitely was not elite, but he was definitely on his way there. And I see that same type of like trajectory. I don't give a shit about him being drafted 4th overall. Doesn't matter anymore. I already complained about it, about, them missing out on Tyrese, blah, 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 but you can't go back and change things. But you should allow him to flourish. You don't need to just stand, just because other guys are doing ISO doesn't mean you're not able to do other plays too. And he should, like, I'm not saying, he should get the ball every possession, every chance, go hit like a midi, things like that. But no, he definitely has promise to just be, just a solid two-way. I don't see the problem with that. I don't see how it's not a far-fetched idea. I'm not saying for him to even be an all-star. I don't even see that. But I do see, great promise. It's just comes down to how things are handled. I don't see him. I don't care if he's aggressive or not. Just play smart. Play the damn game. That's all there really is to it. But yep, that's me. That's me on how I feel about, just the history behind it with the Bulls. I think there's definitely, it could keep moving forward. Maybe Dalen Terry, definitely two-way potential. But we'll see. I hope Scottie gets better, doesn't keep obsessing over MJ, sounding like Isaiah Thomas for the Pistons. Really bitter. And I just hope he gets help. And I feel like with him and, with them talking about the triangle, go ahead, just try to have something implemented. There's receipts of me mocking anyone who brings up the triangle in the modern NBA, because I don't really see it working. But by all means, if it does, I would love to be clowned and be wrong. I definitely do not mind that whatsoever. I'm going to bring more of these positional breakdowns of how they contribute to the NBA. Definitely talking about the 3-and-D. The next one I will do is talking about, point guard position, because I feel like there's a lot of loose terms being thrown around with it. And just the way it's viewed is kind of very, like, skewed to the old school way, and I kind of don't like that. I definitely don't. It's definitely stupid. But then, about a center, free agent, things like that. Overall, thank you guys so much. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, dislike, leave a comment, let me know if you don't like anything. If you do, suggestions, things like that. Thank you so much. I'll see you when I see you.